Welcome to Seekers and Shifters, where we talk to the world's foremost experts in personal growth and development and ask them everything we really want to know. Hey, Seekers and Shifters, it's Michelle, and in today's episode, we're talking to Giovanni Marsico. Gio is one of the coolest people that I know. He does amazing events, and he brings all of the coolest people together, so I was really excited to have him on the show and just talking about how he got into that, how he does that, and just what his philosophies are on life. He's got some really cool things to say about planning your life for the next 10 years and how to work backwards from that. So check out my conversation with Giovanni Marsico. Gio, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I always like to have fun with intros, and I've always changed mine every day for the past 10 years. Today, people know me as the founder of Archangel, which does a million things, but we are an amazing community of seekers, entrepreneurs, and people who want to change the world and do really big things. And I've produced awesome movies. We produce awesome events. But most importantly, I think I'm really good at bringing awesome people together.
You are. And that's what's so interesting to me about you. It's like, I want to start there if that's okay. How do you do that? Because you bring the coolest, biggest deal, most amazing people together. You get them to do all kinds of stuff. It's all because, when I talk to people there, I love Gio. I do anything for Gio. I just want to know, is this the mafia thing? What do you have over these people? How are you getting them to?
Yeah, the love mafia.
Yeah.
Let me give you the context so you get the story. When I was in fifth grade or elementary school, we moved around a lot. So I was always the new kid and often bullied. And because of that, I think I learned the skill at a young age of how to get people to like me and how to fit in and how to build relationship at such a young age. And then in high school, my best friend and I, when we were 16, said we should we started going to these dance parties for teenagers and thought we can do this. And our very first event, I was 17 years old. We had 1,000 attendees.
Wow.
And realized because I've spent the past 10 years figuring out how to know everybody and build relationships, we can actually use that gift to do really cool things with and make money with. And since then, I've had 250,000 people attend my events. And I've actually lost count of how many events I've produced. And because it's been a 30-year career doing this in some form or another, you get better and better and better, and you develop mastery. And I think we all have some kind of gifts that we are either born with or develop in early age, but we don't realize they are. And usually because it comes so easy and we might take it for granted or not realize it's special until enough people keep telling you, you're really good at this one thing. And if you have the awareness of it and you start leaning into it, it becomes what I call a superpower. So, connection is a superpower for me now because I've developed it like a skill.
Yeah, 100%. And I see that. And one of the things, so the first time that I went to one of your events was in Austin last year, right? And the second I walked in, and it wasn't that one was not a huge event, right? It was, a hotel ballroom. We've got tables, maybe a few hundred people were there. And I walk in and there's a place for me to sit with my name on it. And there's a journal for me to write in and a pen for me to write with. And it's all branded. And before anything else happened, I was like, okay, this guy knows what the fuck he's doing. Because with events, sometimes it's just that little detail stuff. And now I've seen you, I've been to smaller events, bigger events, and I've seen no matter what we're doing, the attention to detail is there. And as an attendee, that makes me feel loved, cared about, like I matter. And it sets the foundation for, like you said, the love mafia. Here's what we're trying to do, right? Everybody here is. And I walked up to you and I don't know if you remember this, but I walked up to you the first time and I said, hey, I'm Michelle. And I had to introduce myself and you said, I know. And I said, okay, we're hugging then. Cool. But even when you're doing something that's very complex, you have managed to weave in this attention to detail that allows everybody to feel like you really want them specifically there.
Thank you. Yeah, we just did an event a couple months ago with 1,500 people, but really it was 3 events across 6 venues across 3 days. And the level of complexity and planning, that was insanity. And you can attest to that. But it was fun. And it's one thing to do a 60-person event the first day to 1,500 the third day. The experience has to change, but the level of detail and the attention, to me, I'm not producing an event. I'm designing a show and creating a memory for 1,500 people.
Well, an experience, right? Like you're facilitating connection among some of the world's coolest people. I'm wondering how, because I mean, I get why cool speakers and are drawn to you now and want to speak on your stages now. But when you first started and nobody knew who you were and you were coming from, you were a DJ, right? And which is cool. Like that's awesome. And that's event production experience. But how did you transition from being a DJ to getting some of these really cool big name people to want to come speak for you?
The DJ thing lasted until I was 21. And then I was also working part-time at 10 different jobs. So after university, the last job I ever had was at a place called Strategic Coach when I was running the marketing there. And it was a dream job, but also one of those wake up moments where if you're entrepreneurial, you realize you're unemployable and you really, right. And 2005 was the year my son was born. And I realized if I don't go all in on something entrepreneurial, I may never do it because I would maybe use him as an excuse or whatever it was. So I left the job to start marketing, coaching, and consulting the year my son was born. And then that led me into more of an entrepreneurial thing. And then that led me into real estate, which I crushed and secretly hated because I thought I had to do that to pay the bills. And I became like not successful, well, not famous, but I was winning awards and being featured in magazines and one of the top people in the space. And it was not aligned with me, but it afforded me the opportunity to start Archangel. So I started Archangel during my real estate career in 2014. And then by 2016, I was able to quit real estate and go all in to do our first big summit event.
I love it. And I what you were just describing is so profound. I want to pull it out and just highlight it for people listening. That feeling when it's just not the right thing. And especially when you start to get successful in something that's not the right thing, and it starts to feel there's a cognitive dissonance to that, and you feel misaligned, right? And you feel that if you're into Abraham Hicks, right? Abraham Hicks talks about you feel like you're in the vortex or you're out of it, and you can tell when you're not aligned or you're not in vibration because it doesn't feel good in your body. And people start to praise you for that thing, and it's almost like everyone else wants to put you in a certain path, and you're going, that's not me. And it takes a lot of courage to stand up and say, that's not me. Actually, this is me. I think there's probably some people listening who are in some sort of that right now and are feeling, well, I have to keep doing what I'm doing because it pays the bills and I have kids and whatever, and I can't do this thing I really want to do. Like, what would you say to people who are kind of stuck in that in the moment?
The thing that worked for me is realizing there's enough time for both. Meaning you don't have to quit the thing that feels like it's not serving you to start the new thing. You can start the new thing. And I think we have a weird relationship with time where people feel like I have no time. But if you actually did an audit of all your time, all your minutes, you would find time. And it's sometimes more of an excuse to stay in our comfort zones, even if it doesn't feel good, because it's familiar. And we prefer familiarity versus darkness and the unknown, which may serve us better. But the growth happens in the unknown. So I think part of the advice is to dip your toe slowly outside of your comfort zone and just make your comfort zone bigger and bigger. And realize part of what happens is your identity shifts. You're constantly becoming a different person. It's like episodes of a show or chapters of a book. You're in your current chapter and you need to escape into the next chapter. And these chapters have different identities attached. So I have my real estate identity, then I have my Archangel identity, and now I'm shifting into my next one, which is the Destiny identity, which is the next company, but also the next version of me.
Yeah. And it's a continual process. I mean, I'm in this right now, which is why, anytime you see me at one of your events and someone says, what do you do? I have a different answer. Or sometimes I'm blah, blah. And it's because my identity is shifting from somebody who ran one company doing one thing for a long time to now somebody who owns multiple companies and is investing and is working on, but I feel so douchey when I'm like, I'm an investor, I'm an investor and an entrepreneur and a thought leader. So instead it comes out like, I have a podcast. So it's, yeah, defining that next identity is so important. Once you get it and once it clicks in, then it's easy to know what to do because you know who you are. And when you know who you are, you know what that person does, right?
But we also get to craft these identities, and it's not acting, it's not pretending, it's transforming.
Yeah. It's becoming what you want to be before you have the evidence for it.
Yeah, cool.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is everyone's, well, I'm going to do. And then when I do, I can have, and then I can be, instead of, oh, I need to be, and then I will have what I need to have to do what I need to do. And what I need to do will become very clear because of who I am being, and what I'm having because of who I am being. And that's what I will be doing. And once we can flip that order, this starts to get a lot easier and we start to get unstuck, right?
Right.
You said something a minute ago that was really interesting. You know, I train entrepreneurs, and the vast majority of the entrepreneurs that I train are parents. I'm a parent, you're a parent. And you said, well, when my son was born in 2005, it kind of lit a fire under my ass. That was the same experience I had when my eldest son was born in 2006. Before that, I was having a good time. You know, I'm a party chick and I had friends and we were hanging out. And it's like, I made enough money and I was smart and doing well at work, but I cared about like making enough money to go out to happy hour and like pay my rent. And, I wasn't overly ambitious, I would say. And then as soon as I knew that I was going to have a son, a child, it wasn't because he was a boy. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for somebody else. That really lit a fire under my ass, ambition wise. And it's interesting because a fear that I hear often, especially from entrepreneurs who don't have kids yet, and maybe want to have kids, is how could I do both of these things? And like, how could I possibly be there for my kids while also, growing a business, and it's too much and I'm overwhelmed. And so I'm going to put off having kids or maybe not have kids so I can do, and it's actually going to make it, not that it makes it easier for you, but it gives you that purpose. It gives you that guidance, right?
It does. Totally. And shifts your priorities even with your calendar. It makes you realize, okay, some things I have been doing maybe aren't as important.
Well, and what you said about time was interesting earlier too, right? Like what I find is when I'm procrastinating on something, it's because I'm not actually really aligned with doing that thing. Like when I'm aligned and I'm excited and I'm in the vortex and I'm in vibration, like you couldn't stop me from doing that thing. It's like wild horses couldn't drag me away from doing that thing. And I can do more in 24 hours than most people can do in a year when I'm in that zone, when I'm clicked in, right? Now it's rare. I wish that happened every day. It does not. When it happens, it's insane. And people are like, whoa, I can't believe I just witnessed how much this person got done in a day. If it's not there, it's like wild horses couldn't get me to do it, right? So part of it is tuning in, and it's like, well, if I'm watching TV 5 hours a day and then saying I don't have any time, is this actually something that I really want to be doing or am aligned with? Or is there more work that I need to do on the identity, on the alignment side? Because once you're excited, you're inspired, right? It just kind of flows.
Yeah, but there's still a tug of war between the motivation, desire to do the thing and the fear of the unknown. Everyone has this because everyone has another chapter. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you are in the journey or how successful you are. There's always another chapter. And the current chapter feels safer than the next one. Mm-hmm. And if you get good with discomfort, it makes your life easier to transform.
Yeah, I call this concept lukewarm water to my clients because it's like when you're sitting in a bathtub and the water gets kind of lukewarm and you don't really want to get out because it's going to be cold when you get out, but you're not really that comfortable in it either. You kind of get stuck in the bathtub for a while. And with entrepreneurs, when people have come to me and they're just totally flat broke and they're out of options, like those people do better faster than the people who are like, well, I'm in a job, I'm making a couple $100,000 a year. Like it's paying the bills really well. And my kids are in private school and like, I can't just, and it's like, oh my God, I wish I could. Sometimes it's frustrating. It's like, I wish I could show you this person who sold their car to invest in their business because they couldn't get any other job and it was their only option. And look at versus somebody that's got all this resource, but feels really stuck because they're just comfortable enough.
Totally.
I have a bad habit of putting myself into discomfort in order to create that. That's the entrepreneurial addiction, right? But as you're talking, I'm realizing, how much I practice the skill of being uncomfortable.
I call it proactive discomfort, meaning often we don't do it unless we have to. We don't change unless there's some kind of pain or tragic event or something. But if you proactively put yourself in just uncomfortable situations where you're more in control, then you realize, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. So that when the reactive stuff happens, you don't react as much.
Absolutely. And this is something anybody listening can just start to do right now. It can be anything from, a lot of our bro entrepreneurs are into cold plunge, cold shower. That's uncomfortable. Making yourself uncomfortable for 5 seconds. You can turn it off if you want to turn it off, or you can practice 30 seconds, a minute. I went to Hawaii and jumped off a giant cliff to practice being uncomfortable. That was really scary. I thought I was going to die on the rocks below, but I watched a couple other people do it and they didn't die. And so I made myself do it. Taking dance classes, being the only one walking in there by myself in a partner dance class is uncomfortable. Walking into your events where everybody's a really big deal is uncomfortable, right? What is it that I can do to challenge myself and push myself to practice being uncomfortable so that I get comfortable being uncomfortable? Because life is uncomfortable. And this is what I really want people to understand. Life is uncomfortable anyway.
Right.
Life is uncomfortable either way. Like, the human experience is one of discomfort. And you can either kind of choose the discomfort and create something that you want to create from the discomfort, pushing through the discomfort, or it doesn't even have to be that push through language. It can be allowing the discomfort, receiving the discomfort, letting the discomfort move through you if you want to do it in a different way. Or you can sit where you are and uncomfortable shit's going to happen.
Maybe for the first time ever in a place where we are constantly sold comfort and convenience. It's like, don't worry about a thing, just lie on your couch or bed and do nothing and everything will happen for you. Have you ever seen the animated movie WALL-E?
Yeah, I was just thinking about WALL-E. I was, when you're in the chair and the cheeseburgers come to you. And you just get back.
The robots will come to you. You don't have to do a thing. And the problem is, without tension or without a challenge or without something, we can't grow. It's like, if scientifically or physically, if you look at how muscle tissue works, if you don't work the muscle, or if you don't actually put physical force on a muscle, it'll atrophy. It'll get smaller. And all growth is like that. But we are sold, there's so much marketing messaging around comfort and convenience that we forget that part. And then the comfort zone gets comfier. And then why do anything when you don't have to? But then the point is atrophy or growth. And you have to choose which one you want. There's no middle ground. You're either shrinking or growing.
Well, and it does have to be an active choice, right? Because otherwise you're just going to default to the WALL-E chair. I did this to myself a little bit during COVID. I was in a place here in DC where things were shut down for a really long time, like 2 years. And I got into edibles. I got into Uber Eats. I got into Netflix, to process my own. As an extrovert, it was, kind of dramatic for me to be in the house. I had always been very active in social life and lots of going out. And so to process that, I WALL-E'd myself there for a couple of years. I'm still trying to get the weight off from WALL-E'ing myself. And I've had to, make different active choices to stop that and keep going. And I'm going to shout out your wife for a second, Dr. Stephanie. Dr. Stephanie's got me taking creatine every day. I'm following along. I'm doing what Dr. Stephanie says, and then maybe one day I can be hot like Dr. Stephanie too. She didn't WALL-E herself during COVID like I did. But if you're not on it, you're off of it, right? And it's really easy for anyone who's ever struggled with their weight like me or any other kind of discipline, right? The second you slide off of it it's like, it'll be a couple days, it'll be a week, and then a month goes by. It's really easy to just default to the nothingness, right? And then you got to make an active choice.
You have to reset. And there's a lot of emotion around these things for people, no matter what it is, health or physique or business or career or whatever. The cool thing is we are way more in control than we think. And again, to me, it's identity. And what I mean by that is there are behaviors we have and habits we have that aren't currently serving us, but we think they're us, in quotes, and we can change that. And I think people assume their personality is fixed once you become an adult, but scientifically it's not. Personality isn't permanent. It's a thing you can evolve and change. And to me, it's like a story or a movie, because I make movies. So the main character, before you make a movie, you have to sit down and think, well, who is this character? You have to create character development, and you can do that for yourself. And who is me in the future? Who can I become? How do I build this person? How do I develop the skills to become that person? And we've always done it, even up until this point today, when you're listening to this. Who you are is who you've developed since you were born. In the first 10 to 20 years, It was being developed by other people were writing the script, because by necessity, we can't take care of ourselves as children. But now we're writing the script. We just don't realize it.
When you talk about having kids and being a parent, if you remember being a kid or a teenager, there's this awkward, clunky point where you start to do this really on purpose. And you go, when I was a teen, this is going to age me, but when I was a teenager, it was like, are you a prep? Are you a jock? Are you a goth? Right? Like, when I was a teenager, there was a subset of kids that were really into Marilyn Manson, and they wore Marilyn Manson shirts and they painted their, but it was like, you kind of are playing with that really, okay, which one of these am I? I'm going to pick a group, I'm going to pick an identity, and then that's how I'm going to dress, and that's who I'm going to hang out with, and that's how I'm going to act. My son, who's now 18, a few years ago, he got really annoyed that I liked all kinds of different music, right? Because in his 14, 15-year-old brain, it was, no, are you like a hip hop person or a country person, or how can you like different genres? You need to pick. And so we start this process as teenagers, and we're really deliberate about it at that point, right? We have all this time to think about it. Again, aging myself, but back in the day, I was reading fashion magazines and trying to figure out how to do my makeup and trying to, I loved physical magazines. I missed physical magazines. Like, that was a whole experience too. And very deliberately crafting an identity. And then you get to a point where you're an adult and okay, my identity is based on my career. My identity is based on the fact that I'm a parent, and kind of these boxes that we're checking, right? And you get to a point where you get so busy with all that stuff that you forget, I can keep doing this. And again, I should keep doing this. If I don't do it on purpose, it's going to happen to me anyway. I kind of think about it as like, are you on a conveyor belt where life is happening to you? Or are you choosing to happen to your own life?
I love that. When we were doing our parties, we would play EDM, house music, high energy music, European music, disco, hip hop, R&B, reggae, same audience, same crowd. And we appreciated all of it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that memory.
Man, if you don't like country music, be comfortable being uncomfortable. There's some good shit in there. Yeah. This is a place you can start right now. Go listen to the Country Channel. Right. Force yourself. So you're really into this superhero thing. And I love that about you, because you're just unapologetically geeky about it. And you've just made so much of what you're doing about being superheroes and creating other people as superheroes. I think the reason that you're so successful, if I had to distill it down to something I see about you, is that you elevate others. And I know that that's very intentional and very deliberate. I love that about you. You're saying, you're looking at any given person that enters your orbit and you're like, how can I be a support to this person and help them be the superhero that they are, right?
Yeah, I fell in love with comic books as a kid. So I've always been that nerd. And when I was a kid, we're probably similar ages. It wasn't cool to be like superheroes. It was the opposite. You were made fun of.
Yeah, you were like a comic book store geek.
Yeah, now it's totally different. Now superheroes are all everything.
That was before all the movies and all the, like it was this big business that it is now.
My friend Todd Herman, who spoke at one of our big events, I don't know if you know Todd, but he wrote a book called The Alter Ego Effect. And the idea that we all can adopt alter egos in different areas of our life, which kind of comes from superheroes. But I'll use Superman as an example. Superman and Clark Kent. Todd says, or asks, when he speaks, he asks this question: which one is the alter ego? And most people say Superman. And he's like, no, Superman is the legit person. Clark Kent is the alter ego. He hides and pretends to be normal. And I think, to me, I love that analogy that we all think the superhero version of us is the alter ego, but we are already the superhero version. We're just pretending to be normal. And sometimes it's not about figuring out what your superpower is as if you have to transform into that person. It's remembering who that is.
Oh, it's all about unmasking and undoing, and just the layers of, again, like when we're teens or in our 20s, we're just piling on these layers of society expects me to be this way. I need to be this way. There's gender stuff, there's education stuff, there's culture stuff, there's parent stuff, there's, here's all the ways that I'm supposed to be so that I can go along and get along and not be hassled and all of these things. Right. And then there's a point where you go, and it's about midlife. I heard the average spiritual awakening happens at 38. I feel a little called out by that right there. But there's a point where you go, okay, checked all the boxes. I did everything else that everybody expected me to do. And I made myself into this person that everybody else wanted me to be. And I don't feel fulfilled. what now, right? That's the classic movie plot, song plot, book plot, because it's such a universal experience. And then you get to look at the second half of your life and go, wait. Not only who do I want to be, but like, who am I that I haven't been showing to people? What haven't I been letting out of the bag?
Right.
What have I been so dissociated from that I forgot it about myself? I went through a divorce a couple of years ago, and part of my healing process was, I had put myself into a box to be in this normal kind of suburban family mom as much as I could. And it's not me, right? I mean, I'm a good mom, but like, it wasn't me. Like, it's not like a lot of people. And as I was going through my healing process, part of it was like, what did I used to like to do as even a kid that I haven't done in a long time? And I remember that I used to like to draw. So I got myself a sketch pad and some sketch pencils. And I used to just draw faces over and over and over. I had gone to an arts camp as a kid and they taught us how to draw faces. And then I just started drawing them. I'm not good at it. Gio, I'm not an artist. Like, I'm not good at drawing faces. It would be embarrassing if I showed you the faces that I was drawing, but it didn't matter, right? Like, that's not the point. We get so into creating for money, creating for expectation, creating to show it off. It's like, what is it like to just sit home and draw faces on your little sketch pad that nobody else is going to see, because it's something that I like to do when I was 12. That's so fulfilling to me, because it reminded the 12-year-old inside of me, the 12-year-old part, that like she still mattered and she's still here. And I still get to create and be creative. Like, that's what this is about. This podcast doesn't make me any money. It costs me money a lot, right? But it's important for me to create something and put something out there. And like, this is a version of honoring that part of me that was creative, that kind of went away when I was more focused on getting my MBA and doing things that would make me money and being a good mom,
I would love people to get in touch with their inner artist. It's powerful. And to me, it's another reminder that, first of all, you are an artist. Even if you think you're not good at drawing or sketching, we're creators, and we are born creators, all of us. And it's different for everybody. But the more you tap into that creation zone or the artist zone and express somehow, whether it's what people would traditionally think of as art, sketching or painting or music or building a business or having thought leadership, using or whatever, impacting other people in some way, to me, that's, you are an artist, you're creating. My art, my canvas is events. And it was maybe a year and a half ago where I reminded myself I'm an artist, because I would produce events that I thought other people wanted or that were like other people's events, to think I just had to be better. And now my whole thing is, how do I be me, and how do I be the artist again and be completely different, where it's going to be hard to compare what I'm doing to anybody else because it's so different.
Because it's yours.
Right.
And it's your creation. And getting into that mentality reminds us that we are all creating our own life and our own experience. This is something that's kind of a hard concept for folks that are just starting out on the personal growth path. So I want to speak to that and acknowledge it, because they go, I'm not creating my experience. This is happening to me, and that's happening to me. And my boss is a jerk, and my wife is a jerk. And, and I'm just trying to fucking get by. It's like, cool. Appreciate that. And the sooner you can shift into knowing that you create your own reality and your own experience, and if you're getting triggered by that as a offensive concept, kind of explore why and what's coming up for you. And as soon as you can shift into that, the happier you will be, the more at peace you will be, and the better your life will go.
Right.
We get real woo in here sometimes.
Cool.
I know you're cool with it. Because at your very first event, there was a table called Am I an Alien? And I went straight to that table with all the other aliens, and it was a great time.
When I do those sessions where, and for context to someone listening, thinking, what did she just say? When we do our more intimate events with maybe, 100 or 200 people, often we'll have a segment where on the screen, I'll put up 10 table numbers and 10 topics and tell people, go to the table with the topic you're most lit up about having a conversation around, just to connect with other people in the room who are lit up like you about that same topic. So for me, it's a way of connecting people and creating really interesting conversations. But the secret is, all of those topics are tables I wish I was at.
Yeah.
Right. So, I wish I was at the alien table, and I think I had one called something about magic, or there's always really, or it might be lead generation, right? The topics range from businessy things to personal growth things to science fiction to whatever.
Do you ever get FOMO that you're not at the tables?
Yeah. It's the one hilarious thing about what I do. I can't be present at my own events.
Yeah.
Because I'm producing them.
You got to train somebody else to do events like you that you can then go to.
Well, my team's awesome, but I can't be an attendee. It's just never going to happen. Even if I had a team that was fully autonomous, and it's just hard to be the creator and the artist and the person enjoying the art.
Of course. I'll put you on the spot a little bit because I'm curious. I've seen all kinds of cool connections come together at your events, people going into business together, people having cool ideas and kind of spinning each other up on vision together and then making something happen. You don't have to pick your favorite one because we don't want to. But what's one that you remember happening that you're like, wow, it's really cool that person and that person got together and then this thing happened, and it wouldn't have happened if they hadn't met at my event?
We've had people get married who met at my events.
Really?
We've had that kind of stuff happen.
Any babies yet?
Yes.
So there are like literally people that exist because of you.
Yeah. Well, my favorite story is me and Stephanie. We got married. So we were friends, and then we started meeting for coffee so I can just help her. We chatted about her health clinic at the time. And then I said, you should come to one of our events. And she started attending. And then there was one event where, if you know, Alan Smithson is a guy who DJs some of our events. He just happened to be DJing this event. It was in the Los Angeles area. And he stops the event. I'm like, what's he doing? He says, I just have a quick announcement for the group here. You all know Gio for being really good at doing these event things. But what you don't know is secretly he's doing this to find a wife. And he meant it as a joke. It was maybe not exactly a joke, but the cool story of Stephanie and I, after that, it was like, oh. And then we started becoming more than friends, and eventually now we're married.
I love that. That's such a...
That might be my favorite story.
I'm sure it mortified you in the moment, and then later you were like, thank you for doing that.
It's hard to mortify me.
That's good to know. Don't challenge me.
See, that's the discomfort thing, where a very good friend of mine who's come to our events since like the beginning is a guy named Billy Anderson. And he wrote a book called Your Comfort Zone is Killing You. So I remember 10 years ago, Billy and I would go, let's say, for a coffee. And then he would challenge me to things. So we'd be in line for a coffee, and then he'd say, order something, but you have to use the word Snoopy. Like weird things like that, or go up to that strange person and you have to talk about this specific thing to a stranger. And I think going through, even just with him, it allowed me to realize, oh, none of this is actually as bad as it could be. And it's hard for me to get embarrassed now in that kind of context, where I won't do things to make other people uncomfortable, but if someone dared me to something, as long as it wasn't dangerous, I would probably want to do it.
He just said that on a podcast to whoever's listening. So if you want to dare to do something, bring it on. Can we talk about you and Stephanie a little more for a second? Because, a lot of people hearing this in the beginning and listening to your career ascent and everything that you're doing, especially a lot of women might think, oh yeah, well, he's probably got, just a wife at home handling everything so that he can do all this cool stuff. You're married to a badass who's got her own shit going on for sure. And so you're one of these dual entrepreneur couples. What tips do you have for other folks who are two dynamic, high-powered people trying to grow and change and raise kids and nobody's home?
I think ritual is so important. We focus a lot on individual rituals, and then couple rituals, and then family rituals. It's like having individual identities and then a collective identity that we work on. And we call it the bubble. Like the bubble is the entity that exists because we're together. And we talk about protecting the bubble. Mm-hmm. The bubble is like our relationship. Well, thanks to her, I've adopted 1 million awesome health habits. And health, not maybe the way people would think, like diet, nutrition, and workout, even though those are amazing. But, like last night, for example, we had dinner, and then we had a reading session with the kids. We're all reading books. And then we played cards. And then we went to bed, like no television and no devices for them. And these are like a 14 and a 12-year-old. So imagine for people who have children at that age, often it's, let's just all watch TV. And we used to do that, but then we're like, why are we doing this? And to me, it's questioning those things. Meaning, is this bringing me closer to my next chapter? And just to ask that question. The timestamp when we're having this conversation, there was a Mike Tyson fight.
Yes. It was boring. It's kind of boring.
I didn't watch it because I was like, my enticement to watch it is because this is a cultural thing and a lot of people are going to be talking about this thing. And then I looked at the timing and I thought, oh, they're probably going to fight at, I don't even know what time they fought, maybe 10 or 11 p.m. my time.
It was late. Yeah, it was like almost midnight, I think.
And we go to bed at 9:30. So I thought, well, am I going to really disrupt my sleep just to watch a fight that I literally have no interest in watching? Like, I don't watch fighting. I don't watch boxing. It's not a thing for me. So yeah, we went to bed and it was like, oh, that's smart. Part of this whole character development thing or identity thing is figuring out choices that serve you to get you to your next chapter. And part of how I do it is I speak to my future self and ask him where he's at. And then I reverse engineer what would he do? And that's a fun way for me to figure out what I want to do.
I love it. What is that called? Is it quantum jumping when you put yourself in the persona of your future self?
It was taught to me by a coach I worked with a long time ago, like 10, 12 years ago. So I don't even know if it has a name. If it does, I'll please let me know. If you're listening to this and you know, message me. Jesse Elder calls it time piercing, if you know Jesse.
I do know Jesse. Yeah.
I think he calls it time piercing.
I love that. And you know, whatever we call it, right? It's that concept of putting yourself into that future identity as if now, right? You hear people say as if now. So when I teach this to entrepreneurs, I think, you know, if you want to have a $10 million a year business, then you need to say to yourself every day, I have a $10 million business. I own a $10 million business. I am someone with a $10 million business, because someone with a $10 million business is going to make financial decisions differently and other business decisions differently than someone with a, you know, $100,000 business that's just kind of replacing a job for them. That doesn't mean that you need to go out and invest $1 million that you don't have, like a $10 million owner would have it and you don't have it. It does mean that they're thinking about, okay, what's the investment that I can make to get an ROI versus, oh, I need to go sell some business in order to make the money to pay for this thing, right? So it's, I want to make decisions as if I have the thing that I am trying to get, right?
I love that.
And if you want to be woo, quantum jump, you know, you can astral project yourself into the future self and just do it the weird way, you know, like we like the weird way.
Weird is awesome.
Weird is awesome. Like that's the whole premise of this whole show, is just like, here's all the weird people we know and all the weird shit we can do. And just, you know, just for explorers, just for seekers. What's the next thing you're going to be exploring in the realm of the weird?
I'm fascinated by what reality is and the relationship between frequency and reality. Mm-hmm. So that's on the weird side. Like the more I learn about very specific frequencies and how all things are essentially frequency, all matter is something vibrating at a specific frequency, and its relationship to us and who we are and how we are receivers, like antenna, mm-hmm. and we are creators of frequency.
Transmitters and receivers. Yeah.
That's lighting me up right now.
I love it. What are you reading, watching, listening to, learning more?
Well, I grew up playing piano. So I took 10 years of piano lessons. So I have a musical background and even understanding where music comes from, like Pythagoras. Do you know any of this Pythagoras stuff?
I know generally that music is math, but tell me more.
If you're listening and you heard the name Pythagoras in school, it was because you were learning about triangles and the Pythagorean theorem. And he was a mathematician, but he also discovered the relationship between different fractions and measurements and how they relate to music. So a musical scale is a set of fractions, and every note is a new fraction. And he kind of figured this out. And he was the one who invented string instruments because he figured out the lengths of the string based on math. So a guitar or whatever, violin, a piano is the same kind of thing. Underneath the piano, there's a bunch of strings. And those frequencies, many of them can be healing. And those are called solfeggios. And then there's all the weird for you. The coolest thing I've learned recently, or one of the coolest things, is that churches, like I grew up Catholic and often going to church. If you go back far enough, churches were designed as healing centers through sound. So the organs or the church bells were tuned at these healing frequencies, which to me is one of the coolest things. And singing in churches was designed to be healing. And I think there's a component of the sound itself and the frequency, but also that our voice, using our vocal cords, is a healing thing. So speaking is powerful, and I'm fascinated by that. I'm also fascinated how, like, one of my things right now is how do I live a life with zero complaining, no matter what happens? just following the world and what's happening in different things, but even on just social media, when someone posts about anything, it's either a lot of people giving kudos or debates or sometimes a lot of complaining. And the energy it takes for someone to make a complaint as a comment to me is like, you could have used that energy for something else. And I think complaining is optional. So in my own life, I'm trying to think, okay, how do I delete complaining?
Oh, I love that.
It's not easy.
I love that. And because it puts the focus back on your responsibility to create your own experience, right? If I'm complaining about something, it's because I'm allowing myself to experience something that doesn't feel good to me. And if I'm allowing myself and I'm making a choice to do that, wasn't I making a choice for a reason, right? Like if I decide I want to get healthier, and so I start going to the gym and lifting weights, and then I complain about how much it sucks to lift weights, right? I don't have to go. I chose to go, and there was a reason I chose to go. I think remembering that almost everything in your life is a choice.
Well, not just that, that's amazing. And a lot of the things I think people complain about are their misinterpretation of what someone else is doing to them, even though the other person has no idea they exist.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'll use an example. If you're driving and someone cuts you off on the road, there's probably a high likelihood that they didn't even know you were there. But the way I watch people react is as if that person not only knows I was there, they know who I am, and they just did this on purpose to spite me. That prick. Like that's the energy of the complaint, and they might honk and scream and road rage, and it's like, but that has nothing to do with you. They didn't even know you were there. And you can take that analogy and put it into other places in our lives, but if you understand that that's how it is, you can stay calmer and more peaceful.
Oh, 100%. Just realizing that everybody's walking around as the hero in their own story, their own superhero. They are living according to their own values. 99.99% of people are doing what they think is right according to their values, which may not be your values, but they're doing what they think is right. They're trying to take care of themselves and their kids, and they're going about their day. And I think most of us have probably, or maybe just me, have been that person who got honked at and went, oh shit, sorry, did I just cut you off? Oops, because you were in your head about doing something else. Everybody's walking around in their own head about their own life.
Yeah.
So this was not actually intended to be a podcast for entrepreneurs, but I think just being who I am and the people who like me and listen to me, it's kind of turned into that. Most of our woo-woo guests are entrepreneurs of some sort. And I think a lot of people who listen are entrepreneurs of some sort or hoping to be entrepreneurs. So I want to wrap up with this question. For somebody who is just thinking about taking the leap, whether that's in the entrepreneurship for the first time, or maybe I've replaced a job, but I haven't really played big yet, and I'm kind of scared to play big. What would be your best advice?
I'm not sure this is the best, but this is the maybe very useful. I like to think in decades. So right now I'm planning for the next 10 years in terms of how I'm thinking about, and even longer, but I'll use 10 years for now. And I'm bringing this up because back to the convenience and comfort thing, there's also the instant thing, like hitting a button on Amazon and an hour later it's at your house. We're trained to think in very short time bursts. Or if you want to lose weight, well, I need to lose 30 pounds by next week. We're not that good with the time frames, but also the long one. So to me, no goal is unrealistic, just the time frame is unrealistic. So if you set 10-year goals that are ridiculous, like stupid, huge, I can't even believe I'm saying this kind of goals, but then reverse engineered it today, it's not as stupid as you think. So if you want to launch a business or start or grow or whatever it is, have fun to dreamstorm at the biggest possible level in 10 years. What could that look like? But realizing it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Mm-hmm. Like most of the people you've heard of in the entrepreneurial space, they've been doing a lot for a long time. You just haven't seen what it takes to get there. And part of this too is, am I willing to invest 10 years for this big dream? Because if you are, then that's probably a cool clue that when stuff goes sideways or there's a crisis or things don't go the way you think, are you going to have the desire to keep going because it's that important to you?
And if you're not, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Just doing what you want to do will get you really far. I think that's what we're unlearning, right? We're unlearning the doing what everybody else wants us to do and getting into the what am I supposed to be doing? What do I want to be doing? The resonance. So thank you for being such a shining, beautiful example of that in my life. And thank you for coming on and sharing all of this with everybody listening. We really appreciate you coming on the show today.
You're very welcome.